Hey, it's Monday. It's 6 o'clock. Terry Holloman is with me. I'm Zach Burns. It is Burns and Holla. Hey, Terry, what's
What's
going
up,
on?
Zach? Hey, man.
You know, you and I have both done shows more regularly than we're doing them right now. So the news doesn't pile up the way that it does, when we don't speak to each other for 72, 96 hours. Since the last time I talked to you, good Lord, a lot has happened.
A whole
Um,
lot, man. A lot to
I don't
unpack.
even, I really don't even know where to start. I guess let's start with Chadwick Boseman,
Yeah.
who let's just look at some of the roles that he played. Black Panther, which obviously is why everybody really knows him.
Right.
His other films were moderate successes, but Black Panther was a worldwide phenomenon. and but he also played Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, and James Brown. Like
Yeah.
he was sort of always challenged by whatever role he decided to take on. None, I would still say, despite those iconic figures, there was nothing more challenging than taking on the role of Black Panther and what that became. And it was a nice little memory, Terry, of what it was like when that movie came out, like before all this garbage happened and people were just excited in January, which is usually, when you release kind of trash films, but there was something to look forward to. And, Black Panther, I still think is like the second or third highest grossing movie in the Marvel Comics universe, which is
Yeah. I think
extraordinary.
it's second only to the last one they just released. What was the
Endgame, but what do you? I mean, you got
Yeah.
obviously that's going to be the biggest one.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're right in a number of things that you said. I think his breakout role absolutely had to be Black Panther. I wouldn't even call it the breakout role. I would call it the thing that cemented him in history.
Yeah.
I believe that his other roles, though, as far as the African American community, we kind of knew who Chadwick Boseman was just based on what he did with Jackie Robinson, the role of Jackie Robinson, and the role of James Brown. Particularly Jackie Robinson. And I know, each one of those characters, he went deep, and we were able to see like the actual actor, Chadwick Boseman, like to see him dive into those characters and become those people. Like from what I understand, when he was doing the James Brown role, get on up, he went down to South Carolina to James Brown home to visit his family, and he went and tried on James Brown old clothes and studied
Old
the
tapes.
yeah, study the tapes of his moves. Like, can you imagine? Like, we've seen James Brown move, right? Like, how do you imitate that? Like, you have to really be in your craft to imitate.
Yeah.
It. So, he's been a great actor for a while. With a really great story, a backstory. But like you said, Black Panther was the seminal role that really transplanted him to the next level, and he's really at this point, because of the way that he's passed. He's iconic. He's in the realms of the James Deans of the world.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great comparison, actually, because a somewhat limited body of work, but will forever be remembered. I mean, it's not like Chadwick Boseman had 20 years of a filmography that now we're now pouring over. It's a few films, but Black Panther, the dominant genre of film for the past 15 years, it has been superhero films. And Black Panther looked differently than any other ones. I remember seeing some really dumb think pieces on like, well, there's been black superheroes before, like Meteor Man,
Yeah,
Hancock.
Candyman. Oh, come on, man.
But it was like this was a black movie, like
Yeah.
start to finish. Where it took place, the cast, the way material was dealt with, and until then, there hadn't been anything close to that in the superhero realm. When you're talking about a genre that's bringing in, at least during the summer blockbuster season, 75 or whatever statistic percent of box office receipts, like that's it became a really incredibly. It was nominated for Best Picture, which is
unheard of, and normally those type of movies don't get that kind of acknowledgement. A lot of people like it. It's a blockbuster, but it never gets awards, from the critics or from its peers as being said, this is a great work of art. But no, this was one that actually stood up. And I'll be honest with you, like as a black man or as a black person in America, when I saw that they were making a Black Panther movie in the Marvel universe. Years ago, when it first came up, I was very nervous, Zach. I was nervous. I was scared because I knew that there was something that, there was so much writing on it.
Yeah.
And there was
same with Jackie Robinson. Imagine if Jackie Robinson had sucked.
Yeah. If it sucks, it's like, okay, we told you so.
Right.
You guys cannot carry a movie. It's not worth it. And for those of you out there that don't really understand, the gravity of a Black Panther, other than the fact that it was just a great movie, for years and years and years in Hollywood, it was suggested that a Black cast or a Black lead couldn't carry a movie of that magnitude, couldn't carry a superhero movie. They don't sell tickets like that, especially overseas. And so there was never an opportunity for a Black lead or even a Black cast. If it would become a Black movie, you know what I'm saying? If, quote unquote Black movie. And we're like, please don't let it be a Black movie. In my heart of hearts, please. I mean, as much as I'm Black, I don't want it. I want it to be something that everybody would embrace and love. And when it came out, I was literally awestruck. I was in the movie with my son, man, and I was really, I'm telling you, man, I got kind of choked up because it was that good, and it was a moment in time. Yeah. And I think
it was.
Yeah.
And now, with the context of what he was dealing with, what we now know, he was like literally had stage 3 colon cancer at the time. And I don't know if it was ever made public, anything that he was struggling with. I certainly was not aware of it. Like this was as jaw-dropping of a death as when it comes to celebrity deaths as I've ever experienced. Yeah. Where it's just like, what? Like I was texting with a friend, just like trying to have this wholesome moment where I'm watching Bill and Ted and the new Bill and Ted, and it's like, holy shit, Chadwick Boseman. Like I texted him, he's like, he thought it was a spoiler that he was making a cameo in the new Bill and Ted movie. I'm like, no, he's dead of something we had no idea he was fighting at the age of 43. And then you start reading about some of the ways he was getting dragged over the last couple of years of his life because he was posting pictures and didn't look like we remember him looking like from Black Panther, and started deleting them. And it's like, man, totally like
people are cold. They don't think, that to look into situations, like he might be going through something. You don't know.
Yeah.
Rather than dragging him and poking at him at his lowest point, just like obviously there was something that was wrong there, even if for instance it was an eating disorder that had him looking like that or whatever it may be, there'd be no reason for you to poke at that.
No, there wouldn't. I don't get what joy, and it's never anyone who's posting under their own name. It's always some avatar account, taking somebody down. Like, yeah, let's say it was an eating disorder. Should that make him any less deserving of sympathy? Exactly. Like if someone is all of a sudden experiencing massive weight loss, like clearly, there is some sort of issue there if it gets to this like level of unhealthiness, and why you would feel like you need to weigh in. But I think that the way that people have responded has truly turned him into like almost like this, beyond iconic, like this almost immortal figure.
Yeah.
And it's, ABC last night ran Black Panther completely commercial free, and then did a documentary about his life. And it's like more that we're learning about him that we had no idea. Like this is an extraordinary backstory. This still incredibly young, he was in his 40s, but gone way too soon. Yeah. His backstory is like, it seems like he never had a moment that wasn't filled with absolute kindness and positivity.
Yeah, he's a great man. I mean, you think about the situation. He's been diagnosed for 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. And he went and filmed Black Panther. He went and filmed the Captain America movie first, right? After he was diagnosed, he filmed a series of movies that led up to Black Panther and Black Panther, and all that included. He did all the the mixed martial arts moves and the mixed martial arts training. He learned the accent. And first of all, before I go back to the backstory, I just wanted to mention this because there's so many things that go into being a great actor. And I think one of the trademarks of a great actor is when you forget that he is acting. Like for the longest time, like I mean, it's gonna sound crazy, but I really thought that he talked like he was from Wakanda. You know? I'm like this dude, and then I saw him talking. I was like, oh yeah, that's Jackie Robinson.
Right.
He's not from Wakanda for the real. Yeah. So he learned all that in the process of going through chemotherapy, through the process of having numerous surgeries to try to remove cancer cells and tumors from his body, pain and the painkillers and everything that went along with that. On top of that, he was going to visit children, sick children in St. Jude's Hospital, kids that were dying of cancer and looking them in the, you know what I'm saying? And going to deal with them in their pain and turmoil and making them feel better in a time when he was fighting for his life. So that part of the backstory was the thing that jumped out to me immediately, that a man would be able to go out there and conduct himself in that manner and put on such a brilliant performance after performance, because he's not just filmed the Marvel movies. He filmed the movie with Spike Lee, Defy Bloods.
Defy Bloods, yeah.
Yeah, he filmed that. And I think he has another movie coming out as well. So that's part of the backstory that jumped out at me immediately, Zach.
So we have that. That happened over the weekend. We lost another legend. I found out earlier today, former Georgetown coach John Thompson, who's like, man, there was just an era of like, and I know we have it now, but now, you know, it seems like they all get suspended for a couple of years for NCAA violations. But there were some big personalities, and
oh my God.
And the crazy, like, so he was the former coach of Georgetown, and was the first Black coach ever to win a national championship. And not only that, like, Georgetown has been a pretty bad basketball team for a long time, but they're always a topic of discussion because John Thompson just so cemented them on the map. And you look at some of the players that that organization was able to produce. And I was watching the NBA playoffs tonight, and the halftime show and the pre-show is as good as the basketball. And, you know, Kenny and Shaq and all them all had the famous towel over the shoulder. It's like that was a really, really great tribute to John Thompson. And again, just another person like.
So here's the thing about John Thompson, man. That's so, and this is how you know he's iconic. And if you come from my generation, my era, and even some of the people younger, but definitely my generation and before. I can't think of other Georgetown coaches. When I think of Georgetown, I think of John Thompson. Period. Point blank. I see him on the sideline. I see that towel, see that suit, and I see the glasses. Whenever I imagine Georgetown in my head, that's what I see. And so that's the kind of figure that was lost in John Thompson. And like you said, he was the first. He was a pioneer when it came to collegiate basketball, being a Black head coach, taking his team to the Final Four. I mean, that had never been done before. And the players that he was able to attract to to Georgetown, and the players that he was able to put into the National Basketball
Association. Can you imagine coaching Allen Iverson as a college student?
Yes.
That must have been
he brought out. So, and again, for those of you who might not be sports buffs or might not, be familiar with John Thompson and Georgetown and Allen Iverson was the best basketball player in the country coming out of high school, and he got into some trouble straight out of high school, and he got arrested and went to jail, went to prison, and nobody was really going to touch him. But John Thompson allowed him, when he got out and got everything squared away, brought him into Georgetown, and gave him an opportunity, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
He went on to become a Hall of Fame basketball player, one of the 50th greatest basketball players to ever lace them up in the NBA.
Second greatest Sixer of all time.
Was that?
Second greatest Philadelphia 76er of all time.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Dr. J and Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
I forgot. That's you know what's up over there, man.
Yeah.
So He's just an icon, and not just Allen Iverson. You think of some of the other greats that came through Georgetown: Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing. These are guys that spent years and years in the National Basketball Association. 42 players he put in, and more than that, just having great basketball players. He raised these guys to be great men. They viewed him as a second father. And they would just, he led them to become better people, better men, better, stewards of the community. So, rest in peace to John Thompson, man.
Yeah. All right, let's try to focus maybe on some good news before we get back to.
Is there something out there?
I don't know. I was kind of fishing, just seeing here's the true joy that I've experienced over the past week. The new Bill and Ted movie it's just great. It's dumb. It's all over the place. It's
scared it was going to be bad.
It's not. It's wholesome. It's wonderful. Like the Alex Winter and Keanu, they're clearly older, but it's not like sad. And the way they pass on the Preston and Logan legacy is really great. But then lately, Terry, I don't know why, but I've been so into the saga of the original Karate Kid.
Really?
The Ralph Macchio ones. So I started watching one like 3 weeks. I watched the first one with Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, Ralph Macchio obviously as Daniel LaRusso. Which there's so much that I've learned about it. One, Noriyuki Morita got an Oscar nomination for playing Mr. Miyagi in the first one.
He did?
Yeah, I did not know that. It was a universal success, both critically and in the box office. So I'm watching it, and I think the reason I started watching it is because I read somewhere like Daniel LaRusso, if you know, he's actually a New Jersey native, as am I. So I was like, oh, I got to check this out. So the first scene is him leaving Newark and then moving to California into this crazy world where like karate is this multi-billion-dollar industry, especially like under 18 karate, which I don't know what your life experience is in terms of your relationship to karate, but I knew like a couple of sort of weird kids that did it and never went beyond yellow belt.
Listen, yes. I'll be honest. Around that time,
yeah,
I never took any classes, but I wanted to be karate man. You remember they used to have the magazines with the karate? And you could buy like the throwing stars in the back. That was me. I wanted the throwing stars.
I did take lessons for like 6 weeks, but my sensei was too mean. He made me cry once, and I just quit. Like because it was. So I watched the trilogy, and the third movie, someday, Terry, we have to break down extensively because the Karate Kid Part 3.
I don't know that I've seen 3.
It's bananas. Like it is crazy. But
which one? Before you finish, which one is 3? Just remind me.
So three is the one. If you remember, okay, there's so many crazy things about the first one. The biggest crazy thing being the Cobra Kai sensei, John Kreese,
right,
who is a former Marine who was former member of the Army, who was U.S. Army karate champion 1970 to 1972, which I know the Army probably never awarded that honor to anybody, but here's why I know even if they did, it's not that important. It's a picture and not a medal. So he didn't get a medal for it. So he sort of, at the end of the Karate Kid 1, Johnny loses. Johnny's supposedly this bad, the kind of the evil enemy character of Daniel LaRusso. And then John Kreese, and there's no parents to be found anywhere, is choking him to death in the parking lot for losing. Mr. Miyagi has to intervene, and John Kreese, gets him to miss. John Kreese punches out a car window, and then it looks like Miyagi is gonna could kill him, but instead, because Miyagi's full of compassionate love, honks the nose. It's great. So, but then Kreese disappears for part 2. It's a weird offshoot. Like Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, they go to Okinawa. Daniel has this brief film-long relationship that, of course, ends by the next one. And then in part 3, they come back. John Kreese, owner of Cobra Kai, obviously lost all of his business. Probably not as much for the reason as he came in second place at the All Valley tournament, as that he tried to choke John. Well, just choking him to death. So he hadn't had a student. So he calls his rich friend named Terry Silver, who's an actor you'd recognize, but I can't remember his name. But you know he's a bad guy because they tell you with so many like completely lacking any sort of subtlety clues. One, he's got a like one of those grease back ponytails, like where it's totally greased here, and then there's a ponytail. Two, he's rich, but this is how he makes his money. He dumps toxic waste into third world nations.
Come on, dude.
And he, like, this first conversation that he really has is like, you realize, oh, this is a really bad guy. He's sitting in a hot tub, has this phone like, oh, they're so poor they won't even know what hit them. Just get rid of that toxic waste. And then this was the best way that they always let you know when somebody was a bad guy in 80s films. Lights up a cigar. Like that was always like there was no good guys other than
good guys don't smoke.
No. So
go ahead. I'm trying to figure out who Terry Silver is.
Okay, yeah, please do. You definitely recognize him. So then he is so incensed by what Miyagi and LaRusso did to his friend John Kreese. He's going to he calls off like all his other multi-billion-dollar businesses and decides to put all of his efforts into getting revenge on Miyagi and LaRusso, and ends up like trying to infiltrate Daniel's life because Miyagi doesn't want him to compete in another tournament. Miyagi and LaRusso have opened up a bonsai tree shop with like in California with this massive amount of square footage. Like, like maybe that would work as a kiosk, but
they got a bunch of them or just got a couple bonsai.
But yeah, and that's the other thing. There's like 7 of them. So, and there's like 7 trees. So even if he sold out of his entire inventory for every single day, he would not be able to cover rent. Anyway, I'm not even tapping into the insanity that this movie is. But the reason that I think that I started looking into it is because recently or a couple of years ago, YouTube at first, which was creating its own original programming, and now it's been snatched up by Netflix. They put out a show called Cobra Kai, which is Ralph Macchio's character and Sweet Leg Johnny's character, like 30 years after, and everything that's going on with their lives right now. And
wait, Macchio is in Cobra Kai?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
Predominantly.
Jeez, I had no idea.
Daniel LaRusso. He is he's not nationally famous, but he's famous enough that he's got a chain of auto dealerships. And his whole theme is we kick the competition. You get a free bonsai tree with every car. I'm not kidding you. Mr. Miyagi has passed because in real life and dude, research that guy's life. He had a phenomenal. He was a stand-up comic.
Get out of here.
That was his.
I think I knew that. I think I do that.
Yeah. And it is, I would enjoy it just revisiting sentimentality, just to see those characters again and what they're up to. Like Daniel's mom just showed up. Oh, and the reason she's not in the third one is hilarious.
What was going like? So you already got dastardly billionaire criminal masterminds in 3.
Yeah,
but now could possibly be? I'm still confused on why just the criminal masterminds want to take out Daniel's son, like
to get revenge for John Kreese, but it's not well thought out. Like it was clearly like
it was a money grab.
Definitely, like Ralph is starting to look pretty old now. We're not going to be able to call him Karate Kid much longer.
Yeah, we're going to do something else again.
But this show is as like morally complex and rife with emotion as anything that I've seen recently. Like it is actually, they take this universe seriously. And I don't know how. Are you familiar with Wicked? It was a Broadway musical.
I know what I remember the premise, the Wizard of Oz type thing.
Yes. So I get dragged. I used to get dragged when I was living in New York to Broadway musicals all the time. And then by the time I left, I was like, oh, Broadway's magical. It's just magical. So Wicked is basically, it tells the story of the Wizard of Oz, but the Wicked Witch of the West is actually the good character and Dorothy is actually the bad character. That's what Cobra Kai is doing. It's revisiting the storyline. And it's like, actually, Daniel was the dick and Johnny was kind of a good guy. And the way they do it, it's like, this kind of makes sense. Daniel,
get out of here.
And it all revolves around like, they're both still completely in love with Allie, who was played by a very young Elizabeth Shue.
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch the original movie, you think like, well, Johnny is just a bad guy. So of course, Allie goes off with Daniel. But the way that they're presenting it now, it's like, no, actually, Daniel was kind of the jerk, and Johnny was this sort of reasonable guy who just got sort of hoodwinked by Daniel.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. So I guess you don't really get the backstory because Daniel-san in episode 1 just kind of comes to town.
Yes,
and him and Elizabeth Shue's character start hanging out.
What happened?
Oh, the dude's girl, and then he's getting pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're flirting one night after Johnny and Allie have had a fight. Mm-hmm. And then Johnny, like anybody who sees his girl kind of chatting it up in a flirty way, confronts Daniel. And then Daniel, and you might forget this, just sucker punches him in the face.
Didn't he pour some punch or something on him or something crazy? I can't remember.
That's later. Yeah. We can get to that. So Johnny didn't seem like was looking for any sort of physical confrontation. Daniel sucker punches him, and then at that point, what's Johnny going to do? His training kicks in, and he beats up Daniel, which is like, if someone sucker punched me, I would probably respond in kind. And then nothing happens for a while. And then, because that's in the summer, then there's this Halloween dance. And this is when Daniel decides to, and Johnny, older Johnny is recollecting this. He's like, I didn't talk to this dude for like months. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in a bathroom stall and Johnny comes over and just pours water all over him and then runs away. And that's when they're all dressed up in their skeleton costumes. Yeah. They beat him up again until Miyagi, 11
grown-ass man,
beats them all up. But even at that point, Johnny's like, gets convinced, like, let's settle this in the tournament. Right. But the entire time, if you watch that original movie, you would think like, oh, Johnny was just this totally terrible person. But it's Daniel that's kind of the bad person. And that's the storyline that Cobra Kai presents.
You've just turned my whole life upside down, man. Perspective is everything. You've just ruined Karate Kid for me.
But the thing is that Daniel's not a bad, because of Miyagi's influence. Miyagi was this good person, without a doubt. Like Miyagi just definitely deserved to beat up Cobra Kai that night because they were beating on this poor defenseless kid.
Right.
So Daniel is not a bad person, but he's not just unequivocally the best person in those movies.
Right.
And Johnny in Cobra Kai isn't a truly good person, but is not the bad person that you think that he is. Like everyone is so, and it gets so like incestuous. Like Daniel starts training Johnny's kid, and Johnny's kid doesn't tell him he's Johnny's kid. Johnny reopens Cobra Kai. That's why it's called Cobra Kai. And you find out like why Johnny sought out John Kreese's tutelage because his stepdad was such a mean guy to him. Johnny and Daniel become friends at some point. Like, is it
the original Johnny?
Yeah. And he's phenomenal in it because he's stuck in the past. That dude as an actor has amazing comedic timing. Like he's a funny character as much as anything. And then it's like it's a soundtrack of like all the music you're into. Like the first thing that you see Johnny do is drive his old Pontiac Grand Am, which he hasn't given up, to Poison's Nothing But a Good Time. I'm like, I'm in on this.
You just gonna pour some sugar on me? Pour some sugar on me.
There's 2 seasons. They're 10 episodes each. And man, was that amazing escapism this weekend.
You got me. I'm all in on Cobra Kai. That's my next binge watch.
Yeah.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Seriously, I hope that I convinced somebody else.
It's gonna make me feel old and nostalgic and happy all at the same time.
That's what's so satisfying about it. It's like they flash back constantly to the first couple of movies, and like you, like I was incredibly inspired by the Karate Kid briefly, but for at least while I was in the theater and for the 6 weeks before I quit. and just to see all those people again.
It's hard. I gotta. Yes, Sensei.
Well, it was like I think that the sensei had just, and this is in South Jersey, like hardly a bastion of like great karate. I think that he had just seen the movie too. So I was like, well, now I'm a hard ass like John Kreese is. So he was kind of overdoing it. I was cramping one day, and he was like, and I was young. I didn't know my right from my left all that much. That was like one of the last things that my brain like fully processed. I don't know why. I could read at like 18 months, but I didn't know my
right and left and all
that. So I would stick out the wrong arm, and so he would single me out, and then I would just cry, and then
get him out of here.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that brought me some joy over, and again, another tough news weekend for Christ's sakes, just
all across the board, man. I mean, where do you want to go with that one? It's just Portland. When I saw the stuff in Portland, like that's so. First of all, Clackamas. I've been to Clackamas a number of times. I've had to because my kids played sports, and that's where we do a lot of the basketball and the soccer, and so our hotels are always there.
Right.
And the mall they were in, where they've had this rally. So again, if anyone hasn't been paying attention or just is out of the area, doesn't know what's been happening, there was a big Trump rally where they decided to gather at the Clackamas Mall and caravan down into Portland to protest the Black Lives Matter protest that's been happening nightly in Portland. And so a bunch of guys with a bunch of trucks and a bunch of guns decided to travel down to Portland, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't the ending that I think a lot of people hoped for, or maybe it was the ending that they hoped for.
Well, they went to agitate without a doubt. Like I saw their initial route, and it was they were going to go from Clackamas, which it's there was some confrontation between them and BLM protesters, but out in Clackamas, you're pretty far out there. Reasonably far out there anyway. Certainly far away from where the protests have been happening in Portland. So their original route was just going to kind of cruise around I-5, which goes around the city. And then the initial the ridiculous thing that I saw was there's literally two guys fighting on I-5.
I saw that. I just saw that before we logged on.
It was so stupid.
Like this is where we're at right now.
The whole and this is what's so frustrating for me, and I'm sure for you, Terry, is that like we are just being dragged down by stupidity that we're not participating in, and that's what's so like and the thing is that we America's going to associate anybody out there rioting or setting something on fire with Joe Biden, even though I wouldn't categorize them as your typical Joe Biden protesters. And then, of course, because they brand it with flags and just other stupid things, anybody who goes to agitate them is going to be castigated as your normal Trump supporter. They're not. They're extremists who happen to support Trump. I'm not apologizing for them, but it's just like, we're letting, I don't even know what percentage of the population drive this narrative. Like it's affecting polls now, and it's affecting more harmfully so than I would say to Joe Biden than Donald Trump, although I think that'll probably change over the next couple of days. To let literally less than 5,000 people at the most, 5,000 idiots at this point, maybe influence this election is just, it's so incredibly frustrating for me.
And again, it's to me, and I don't know that I've ever really said this in public, so I'll say it here for the first time, I guess. It's so infuriating to me, and I would think should be infuriating to anyone with a brain and a normal thought process, that this is okay, like that this is normal, that what we're dealing with is normal, that that you can be so incited, so enraged that you would take to the streets and do some of the things that I'm seeing people do. For instance, these guys that drove down into Portland, you know what's going on down there. Okay, what would drive you to hop in a bunch of trucks and shoot people with paint guns and bear spray? You would have to assume, like, in your right mind, like something is going to come from that, and it's not going to be good. And ultimately, the end result was not good. So I'm just completely, like, my mind is so shot on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Just thinking about all these things that are going on.
And then just to go back to Kenosha, we're seeing Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old who's been charged with 2 counts of murder. For there to be people, for Trump to literally defend a fucking murderer today, like that's so beyond the pale. Like that is unprecedented to a level that brings me angry to, like, tears almost. Like he defended someone.
He's not a guy that's under investigation. He's an indicted murderer.
Yeah, charged with murder. Brought an AK-47, or I know Second Amendment people are just going to correct me. Wherever the goddamn gun was, went with a real big goddamn gun, and wasn't down there to protect businesses. And then if you see, like, the household he came from, like, it's understandable. And then I'm seeing also, well, guess what? He was cleaning graffiti earlier. He was a lifeguard. And trying to justify that this was just a good kid caught in a bad situation. He went down there to create violence. That's when you bring a gun like that. You don't do it because you want to protect the local target or whatever. You go down there because you want to shoot the gun. That's why you bring it.
You want to show how badass you are.
And now I'm seeing supposedly Christian organizations raising, exalting him as a martyr, exalting him as someone who has finally, stood up to these protesters who have given up the right to live at this point because they keep taking to the streets. And 5 minutes ago, you and I just expressed our frustrations with them. Never did that at that point. Did I ever feel like that should turn into a loss of life, either in Kenosha or in Portland, without a doubt. And Joe Biden, I think, spoke about that very eloquently today. The difference is that when whoever is put forth as the person who killed that man in Portland, there's not going to be a goddamn organization that's going to raise legal funds for him.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands. Hundreds in a time when, I can't imagine how many people with legitimate concerns that they didn't bring upon themselves due to virus or whatever it is, could also use some of that money. People, again, self-proclaimed Christians, decided to give it to Kyle Rittenhouse. And here's my favorite thing. It's like, well, he's 17. He's only 17. Well, Trayvon Martin was only 17. You had no problem. Even, Tamir Rice was 12. You had no problem tried to look into his background and try to find something about him that you could spread negatively about on your stupid little fucking Facebook account or whatever it is. So 17, is no longer, I think, a valid opt-out as to why you can have, a critical thought about somebody.
17, when you illegally possess a firearm that you're not supposed to have, and you cross state lines driven there by your. First of all, Zach, I want to address this. Like when we talk about his parenting and his home situation, now I know you just have a cat right now, but just imagine the situation. I know you just have a cat now. I want ask everybody that's out there that's sharing this time with us.
Yeah,
that you are a parent. Imagine yourself in a situation where you would deliver your child to a war zone, to essentially a war zone where there's a volatile riot taking place, and drop them off for any reason. Your only child. Why in the hell would you ever do that? First and foremost. But he's there now. He's willing and able and wanted to be there, obviously. It's not a punishment. So he's there with an illegal firearm. He's out there protecting a business that did not ask him to protect that business. And in the process of doing all these illegal activities, he murders somebody. So now that he's murdered somebody, he decides that it's time to flee. And the people around them are saying, hey, that's the murderer. Get him. So they went to get him. And then he murdered another person.
right.
So how these people try to rationalize this in any way, shape, or fashion and paint him and label him as a victim or a hero. This is one of the things I was talking about, Zach, that anybody with a normal thought process and common sense, this drives you bananas.
Yeah. Because I don't know who to talk to anymore other than you, Terry. Because everyone I know, not everyone I know, that's not true. I know a lot of people that are reasonably looking at America right now and be like, yeah, we're all awful. And that's true. We're all awful, or tacitly endorsing something maybe that's awful. But there's someone that came up with this thought that I'm politically tribeless, and I sort of feel that way right now because I think that it's okay, just as we've done here in the past 10 minutes, to condemn a violence that we see committed falsely in the name of George Floyd, and then violence committed falsely in the names of some sort of made up All Lives Matter movement. Like both of those, it's okay to be upset with both of them. And actually, I think it's moral to be upset with both of them. If you're only upset with one and not the other, then you've bought into some sort of idealism worship that I just can't get on. I can't get on board with.
No, we are totally really, and I've said this before in the past, we are totally in the Lord of the Flies, man. Yeah. We are living in the Lord of the Flies, man.
Except they're all adults.
We're adults. Lord of the Flies. That's it. That's it. We're fighting over the comp, and it's completely insane, man. And it's insane that we do not have leaders at any level to really set out and address this and say it's wrong. Well, we do have people that are doing it, and I think you alluded to it earlier. Joe Biden came out today and condemned violence. Yes. Period. He didn't say, "Oh, these right wingers are the ones out there causing the trouble." Condemn them. But the people that are in leadership right now in Washington D.C., particularly, and again, I'm not trying to point fingers, but honestly, they're blaming the Democrats. It's the Democrats' fault. If the Democrats don't stop this, they're going to bring violence. They're coming to the suburbs.
It just the strategy that they're using now is like, if you want 4 more years of this, vote Democrat. While this shit is happening now under Republican leadership, like that's so strange for me. Like, imagine if I was a restaurant owner and like you're getting sick from my bad food, and I'm like, well, the only way you can't get sick is if you come back again.
You gotta eat some more.
Like, he's just got keep eating. You
gotta build up the immunity back.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Put some more of this crap in there. You'll be all right. I promise you. It's so crazy. We gotta laugh like this in order to get by, man. Because
I do, yeah.
Insane, man. It is insane times. There's insane people leading the way. I just wish, honestly, I just want somebody sane. I just want somebody sane that I can live to.
That's
So
crazy.
it's
I don't even know if I need full sanity. Like right now, if there was a Scientologist who was like, I have a plan, be like, well, not all of you is, but
let's give it a shot.
Let's see how this works. We've brought this topic up a couple of times, Terry. How are sports working for you?
They're not.
Yeah.
They're not at all. So actually, let me. I'll go back to that. This weekend, what I did is a Saturday afternoon. I was like, I clicked on ESPN for the first time in a long time, and usually that's one of my. Your remote control has the last button.
Yeah.
ESPN is usually like one of my I can just go straight back to ESPN, right? Food Network, ESPN. So I haven't watched ESPN in a long time, right? And they had on. I watched some high school football. They're playing back east. So I watched some high school football. I was kind of getting pumped about it. And then they had one game. It was like Austin, PA, and Central Arkansas. Like, that's the game. That was the game of the week. And so I was kind of excited to watch live football. But other than that, like, I've been completely turned off by all the other sports because it's so unnerving to watch sports in that way. Watching a basketball game with no people around.
Yeah.
Watching a baseball game with no people, with pumped in sound, artificial sound.
More than any other.
And cardboard.
I hate the cardboard shit. Hockey kind of works because you never see the fans as much.
Right.
But yeah, the baseball games. And, the season's like 70% done now, which I thought that there would be some people who were like, yeah, every year should be 60 games. But I think that we all realize, like, baseball needs to be a longer season than 60 games.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And it just, none of it feels like real. Like, there was a good piece today in Vanity Fair. Like, some journalists got access to a stadium and watched it, and kind of echoed what we were saying. It doesn't feel like we're watching a real sport. Like, this is just some simulation.
Yeah.
And it's not comforting. I really thought Kyle Lewis is a great Mariner right now. Like, he's a leading candidate for the Rookie of the Year. They've made some good tactical moves, and I read the tweets by Danny and Jessamine, less so Brock, and then they're. I'm like, I want to get into this. I want to get into, I love the game of chess that baseball is when it comes to filling, but it's just, I can't. And God, I guess God bless the sports journalists for trying to.
It's just so much. It's just so much worse. To me, it's so much worse. It makes, sometimes, I go into my little, I compartmentalize this whole thing with this pandemic. Like, okay, it is what it is. I'll focus on some other stuff where I just, I won't have to think about it constantly, right? But watching those games is a in your face reminder that everything is really jacked up, man. Like, to see the whole feel of it is like it's creepy. Like, it's really, really creepy. Like this can't. It's like I'm watching something I'm not supposed to be watching. Like, I'm watching. Like, I'm a voyeur. Like, I'm looking at my neighbors through the window, and I'm not supposed to be seeing what I'm seeing, and it's uncomforting.
See, that I've been really into lately, just spying on my neighbors.
You trying to get put in jail? You want to go to COVID jail?
Well, this week, Terry, we're gonna do another one on Wednesday. Then I feel like I want to convince you to do the special one I'm doing on Thursday.
Uh-oh.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, and it's up to you. But one night I just decided to reach out to a bunch of the punk rock front people that I was super into, whether now, because Terry, I will say this, something I have found a lot of comfort in is revisiting some of the music that I really, really used to love but hadn't listened to. And like, I'll show you something I just bought on vinyl.
Uh-oh. You got a record player somewhere? Zach, you are what do you call it? A classic man, nostalgic. Oh, look at that, Rancid.
Yeah.
Oh, that's class. I remember that album cover.
It's 25 years old as of 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
This album is 25 years old. So I've been buying a lot of the punk stuff that I was into. Yes, and it is on vinyl. I've become that person again who just,
Yeah, you are.
records. Even though this is readily available, all the MP3s are readily available on my Amazon.
Stream it right instantly.
It's just streaming. My record player literally has a Bluetooth connection, so it's just completely nullifies the need for a record. But there was something exciting about this arriving.
Before you go further with that, I just want to, for all of our listeners who are millennials and younger, I mean, there's something to be said about a record or a tape. Back in the good old days, we dating ourselves now, right? A little bit. I'm gonna date myself. I don't care. It is what it is. But we used to have, when you want to listen to some music, you used to have to. First of all, it was like, I'm trying to remember how we even knew stuff was coming out. You either had to have it in a magazine or watch American Bandstand or
MTV.
have it.
American Bandstand. I'm not going back that far.
I mean, from the 90s when he was old, you still see the Beastie Boys are on, they perform, and they're like, my album is coming out in 2 weeks.
There used to be buzzworthy videos. If you remember on MTV, it was just a major source for new shit.
Yeah.
When I first heard of the Breeders or whatever, it was MTV that because how else am I going to do it? There wasn't a section in the newspaper, another, there wasn't a music section, but yeah.
Pre-internet, children.
Pre-internet, yeah. There was something really exciting about having a physical copy or there was something in it. It's something incredibly romantic about making somebody else a mixtape.
Oh yeah,
it's creating a playlist on Spotify.
Yep.
You just sit there in real time. You know what I mean?
Wait, and wait.
Tape.
So think about this, Zach. Think about this. So you knew your favorite album was coming out right on Tuesday.
Yeah,
at Tower. So you're gonna get there right after school or whatever it was. You ever remember going in and looking and shit was gone? Like you get in a section, you get in the Metallica section and be like, M. They're all sold out. And you can't have it. Like you can't have it for another 2 weeks.
You just had to wait.
There
was nothing else to do. It's kind of like, when you didn't know something. Sometimes you just didn't know it for a while until someone knew it or had a book that the piece of information was it.
Encyclopedia.
You just had to wait. Yeah, that's right. Especially on new release days.
Oh yeah.
It was always a Tuesday, and for me it was Sam Goody.
Yep.
So Sam Goody was even smaller than Tower, so they get maybe we'll keep using Metallica as the example. And Justice for All, they'd only get 30 copies in. And if you got there at 6:00 that night,
you didn't get it.
You didn't get it. They used to get it. You didn't know the next time. And then sometimes, and this is something that's hard to imagine. So there was in my town, there was a CD place, and they had a decent selection. But most of the time, you had to special order something, and they would just have this catalog of this, hopefully that contained the record you wanted, and then you just had to wait 2 weeks.
Yep.
The goddamn 1920. Just 2 weeks. Are you kidding?
Can you imagine that? I mean, that is so. I mean, how quickly we switch, our perspective and our expectations about stuff.
Yeah,
that's what we would do. Literally get on a bus to go to the mall or go to, what I'm saying? I remember catching multiple buses to go to the mall to pick out my Beastie Boys tape when I wanted it. And it was a tape in a big long ass sleeve. So nobody would steal it.
Great. I know.
Yeah, and I had to wait. And then if it wasn't there, you have to wait weeks. And now it's just oh man, what was that one song I used to listen to back in the day? Oh yeah, that's it. Here I have it.
Yeah.
It's done. It's done.
Well, so Amazon Music didn't have one record that I've since ordered on vinyl. One record that I've looked for in the entire time that I've ever searched Amazon. I go obscure. Just banned from Kalamazoo, Michigan, that had put out one record in 1998 called Broken Heart Blue, and Amazon has that shit. It's just so they didn't have Cap and Jazz. So I signed up for another entire thing just to get that. I couldn't wait, the extra 2 days it would take for it to arrive. This is a long way around. Like, so I grew up a punk rock kid. I'm wearing, this is Jawbreaker. They were my punk rock heroes growing up. But I invited like 10, different punk rock people to come on from bands like Squirt Gun, Teenage Bottle Rocket, Sicko, who are local Seattle legends. And, like 4 have gotten back and want to come on. Because I just want to talk about, not only just, I guess, what punk should mean in 2020, but just kind of reminiscing about sort of what we just did. Like, clearly we're more cut off than we are in person, but when it comes to access to things, we're just as connected as we ever were. And it just might be fun to share stories, except there from start to finish. Sometimes completing an album collection of one band would take like a year. Oh, yeah. And now it takes however quick your download speed is. Yeah. So we're doing that on Thursday, and we're going to talk about skateboarding too, which is going to be fun. Wednesday will be a more, nearmal show, but if you want to do it, Terry, I think it'd be fun. I never talked to any of these guys. Yeah. We'll see. Someone did bring up here too. This is hysterical. You remember this?
Columbia
House.
Hell yeah. I never, what's funny? I never did it. I always wanted to. I always got the thing and I would check off all the ones I wanted and I never sent it because my parents were like, it's a scam.
But kids could sign up. That's the weird thing. Because my friend Paul did, right? And the scam of it was you would get 10 tapes or CDs for a penny, plus shipping and handling, which was like $2.99 a tape or whatever. But it was still like a good deal. But the thing is that then they would start sending you albums of their choice every month until you canceled. And canceling now, it just means unsubscribe. Canceling then was like a handwritten letter. There was no responsible kid that was going to do that. So I remember my friend Paul just had like stacks of Emerson, Lake and Palmer tapes and stuff. Shipped, but he would go and get the mail real quick so his parents didn't know that they came. Oh, 10 tapes for a penny. Oh my God. I
forgot. I used to always be like, I'm gonna do it. And I'd get the thing and I'd be like, my mom would be like, hell no, it's a ripoff. We're gonna have my house now.
Right. Everyone had a penny.
I got that. At least I had a paper route. I had a couple pennies.
Did you literally have a paper route?
I had a paper route.
I wish I had that job. That just seems like one of those jobs every fine young American should have at some point. And now it's just all adults.
I did it in Canada, in Edmonton.
Oh, you did? Jeez.
When it was 30 below.
Oh, well, I wouldn't want that.
30 below. We stole my mom's car. I'm like 13 years old, driving my mom's car, delivering newspapers. Because it's like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's dark outside. My parents is asleep.
That's Edmonton Sun, right?
Oh yeah, you already know it. The Edmonton Sun, Sun and Edmonton Journal. I'm delivering the paper with my little brother. I'm like 13, driving the Chevrolet Celebrity through the snow drifts. Why is there tracks on my car? Why are there tracks in the driveway? Good old days, man.
All right, man. Well, I'll talk to you again on Wednesday.
There it is.
Yeah, back at Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mike thing we'll wrap up on. Mike Lewis is our buddy who does Cairo Nights now, and is going to have me on tomorrow to sort of plug the show. Yeah, so that's a really nice thing. What he's going to plug is what I'm going to say now. Facebook.com/Burns and Holla, and YouTube.com/Burns and Holla. I needed this, dude. Thanks for the
I
distraction.
needed it too, brother. Badly.
Wait, I think is Tori your brother?
That's him.
That is him.
You know, tracks in the driveway. It was you. He was the little brother. He was driving.
Good to meet you, Tori. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Terry, I'll talk to you in a couple of days.
All right, Zach.
See you, buddy.
Take care.